Welcome to the Untypical Parent Podcast. It's a podcast for parents in additional needs families, and I'm your host, Liz Evans. This is the place to find your reassurance that there is no such thing as a perfect parent. It's here to make the hard bits feel lighter and the good bits brighter. Just quickly before we get started, are you looking for practical ways to support a child experiencing school anxiety? This season, I'm delighted to let you know that the Untypical Parent Podcast is sponsored by Terry Wise from Wise Inclusion and Rachel Helm from Helm Education Consultancy. They are experts in inclusive education and supporting children who struggle to access school. Together, they run webinars and workshops to help parents and schools work together and improve outcomes for children experiencing emotionally based school anxiety. If you're supporting a child struggling with school attendance, check the link in the show notes to find out more about how Terry and Rachel can support you. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Untypical Parent Podcast. I am delighted today to have somebody come join me. His name is Chris Braid and he is the host of the radio show, The After Party. Thanks for coming to join me, Chris.
My absolute pleasure. It's very nice to be here. It's nice to be asked, actually.
Was it? Is it? You must have been on podcasts before.
No, I think this might be my first one, actually.
Is it? Okay.
Like, I felt quite upset that nobody had ever asked me to go on one. So I'm pleased that you've asked me.
Do you know what though? Sometimes when the tables are turned, it's really weird.
That's great.
But what's quite nice is no editing.
Yes.
You can just go, yeah, I'm just going to pitch up and talk.
Yeah, that's true.
But
yeah.
What happened was I met Chris on his radio show, The After Party, which is a great radio show. I had a fab time with you and Laura. Actually, what's really interesting is the story behind you and the After Party
Yeah.
show that you run. And I thought it was really interesting. Chris, why did the After Party come about? What was that about?
Well, quite a few different things happened that, brought that to life. So the first thing, I suppose, was I had a mental breakdown in mid 2024. Looking back on it, if anyone's ever been through that, it is a bizarre, weird thing. It almost feels like it was another person.
Yeah.
Crazy, really. And I was pretty desperate at the time. There was a lot going on in my life with the separation and divorce and financial pressure. I think as well, just someone like being in my mid-40s and looking at my life had been completely turned on its head and just thinking like, how the hell have I ended up here? I am an electrician. And I've been doing that pretty successfully. I really enjoyed it. But the physical nature of that job just caught up with me. I've back problems in the past. I had a back operation in 2010. And so I was like, something had to give, and first of all, it was my mental health, and then I went back to work, and then it was my physical health. Like I got rushed to St. George's in August 24. I had something called cauda equina syndrome, which is where your spinal column collapses, pushing into your spinal cord.
I
don't recommend it.
No.
And then 3 weeks later, I got rushed back to St. George's because I couldn't feel my feet. It was all getting a little bit kind of crazy, and I had to have
That's scary.
It was terrifying. So I had to have an emergency spinal correction, a double discectomy and a laminectomy. So I was in bed for several months afterwards, and then I tried to go back to work last year, at the beginning of the year, but it was apparent that I was going to be struggling physically. I was in so much pain, and I just thought to myself, what am I going to do? And my sister came to the rescue a little bit, so concerned about me that she was trying to find somebody for me to speak to in terms of a counsellor or a therapist. And when the community mental health team were visiting me, they were great. Don't get me wrong, they were amazing. But my sister was asking them, well, what about Chris's ADHD? And they were all a bit kind of clueless. They're just like, well, it's not really my department, that sort of thing. My ADHD assessment got fast-tracked because of all of it. And then,
so at the point of your breakdown, Chris, you didn't know you were ADHD?
No, I think I did know, and my sister definitely knew.
Yeah.
But it's never been it had never been like a big enough thing to have to get a diagnosis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think um, it would have been handy to know, and we can talk about that later. I guess that was a real sort of pressure point where, like it was like, oh, okay, this is getting serious, this is getting desperate. You couldn't fix somebody had a broken hip. You would look at, well, what would be done to your hip that's broken it? Do you know what I mean? That's maybe not
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
but there's, you're feeling this way, you're acting this way, you're suffering from this. What's the root of it?
Mm,
And there
mm,
are lots of different roots of it. I mean, suffering from depression, it can be triggered by, loads of different things.
yeah.
Necessarily have to be triggered by anything. But when you've got lots of things on top of you, cumulative effect is
Mm,
pretty heavy. Laura basically said, look, you have got ADHD. Getting a diagnosis isn't going to fix it, but it would maybe help you understand it better.
yeah.
Is exactly what happened. And then once I had my diagnosis, then Laura was already kind of up and running with what she wanted to do with the after party, in terms of she couldn't find me the support and help that I needed. So she thought, well, if I can't find the support and the help, then I'll create it, which is exactly what,
Sounds like Laura.
yeah, basically, yeah. And then once she had that up and running, the ball was rolling, then she approached me then to say, well, do you want to be part of it? I'd been doing a radio show for years.
Okay.
It was basically all about music. That's my sort of passion in life, if you like. And it has been that way since I was a teenager. But after my operation, I had to let the radio show go because it was just, I just couldn't physically do it. And then when I
Yeah,
went
yeah,
back to doing it again, that momentum that I built up over all those years, it just kind of hit a brick wall. And I just thought, I
yeah.
just don't want to do this anymore. And so with the after party, it gave me an avenue into going back and getting back into it again.
I suppose thinking up to that point, Chris, was what kind of coping strategies were you using then? Because obviously the ADHD probably you knew, a bit like for me, I knew I was dyslexic, but didn't have a diagnosis. And actually the diagnosis made the big difference.
Yeah.
But what did life look like? How are you coping?
Not brilliantly. So, I mean, I think obviously we're going to get on to talking about this in a minute, but I've been sober now for 6.5 years. So I started drinking when I think it was 14 or 15. And although, you wouldn't say somebody is an alcoholic from that age, I can look back on it now and certainly see that I was drinking alcoholically. I drank alcoholically for 25 years, really. And then I got sober in 2019. That's about 8 or 9 months before COVID. My business had a massive upturn during COVID. I was so busy.
Okay.
That was great because it gave me like a different focus. I was like, oh, I'm sober now. Fantastic. My life has, it almost feels like you've been reborn in a way. My problem is that I started swapping addictions, basically. What it was is that addiction, drinking drugs had been such a millstone around my neck for so many years that when I finally got rid of that weight, on the surface, that was the thing that was causing all the problems. So you get rid of that and then you think to yourself, all right, well, I'm fine now. I'm
Yeah.
great. Look at me. And I was
Yeah.
very proud of myself for getting sober. Probably a bit too proud of myself in a way, actually. Like, because well, the thing is, like, you wouldn't go home and say, oh, I didn't act like an idiot today. Aren't I great? You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit like
Yeah.
saying, you know, I'm not racist. Aren't I fantastic? Was like, no, you shouldn't be racist. Being racist is rubbish. Having an alcohol problem and addiction,
Yeah.
you get over it. The addict, it is an achievement. You think this is great. This is amazing. It's probably looked at differently from other people. I'd have thought, because you've put
Mm,
people through a lot of grief and pain and hardship over the years. But that was very much a coping strategy for me.
yeah.
It's just to dull the noise and just calm everything down.
And I don't know the kind of exact stats, but I know there's quite a high incidence of people that possibly are ADHD that maybe aren't diagnosed. And that's almost like a form of self-medication to try and
Yes,
get through that. And it's
yeah.
not unusual.
No, I don't know. I don't know how accurate these figures are, but the figures that I was told is that 20% of the population are neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And 80% of people who are neurodivergent will have problems with addiction. So
That's high.
it's high, but that can be lots of different things. It could be food, it can be drink, it can be drugs, it can be
Yeah.
gambling.
Yeah.
But it can also be things which seem less harmful on the surface, as spending money.
Yes.
Social media, getting addicted to your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess it's
Yeah.
a form of escapism, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, spending money became a substitute, and so you get that dopamine hit,
Yeah.
from buying something. And it's not just that either. Like for me, it was the kind of the road to buying that thing. You're very, very open about this. It sounds a bit kind of crazy, but if I saw somebody wearing a pair of trainers that I thought, well, all those are nice. I'm like, right, I need to find out what those trainers are. And so then I would go on this focus voyage of discovery to figure out, right, what are those trainers? And then once I found out what they are, then I go on a voyage of discovery to see, right, where can I get them? How much are they? Who's got them the cheapest? And, then you keep on looking at it and then you think, oh, they're cheaper and they're cheaper, And then before you know it, you've already convinced yourself that you're going to buy these things that you just absolutely do not need.
Yeah. I've done exactly the same, Chris.
You have, right?
I see people
Not just
out.
me, then, right, okay.
Oh, I've seen people out, or I've seen them on. It used to be when I see them out, but like you say, now with social media,
Yeah.
I see someone on social media and I'm like, oh my God, I love that top. Where have they got that from? So I'm now typing into Google, trying to describe the top. That doesn't work. Right. I'll go into AI and try it in there. And then, like you say, then it's on the voyage of where can I get it from? Where's the cheapest place I can get it from? And sometimes I don't even buy it. Actually, for me, the purchase doesn't actually happen. It's just the process of I've got to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the problem with them as well, I don't always buy it straight away either. But then I've got it in my head, and it's just it's
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And one day, if I go on a site and it will say 25% off, then it doesn't matter how much it originally was. I then trick myself that, oh well, I'm technically losing money if I don't buy this thing.
Yes, I know what you mean. It's a bargain.
Yeah, it's a bargain. So then you get it, and then you get that reward, but then you get horrible buyer's remorse, and you just think, I absolutely did not need this thing, and it goes into the pile of all the other stuff that I've got.
Yeah.
And so, coping strategies for me for years and years, it was far more harmful things like drinking drugs.
Yeah.
And it became less harmful, I guess, on the surface, but equally as harmful to the people around you. And I recognise that now. Yeah.
And I was going to touch on that because a lot of the people that are followers of the podcast are, most of them will be parents, and you're a parent yourself. What impact did that have on parenting for you with the kids?
I'm very lucky that when I got sober, the kids were, I guess, they weren't even teenagers yet. So they were so young that they didn't really ever see the impact of what it was doing to me. I don't think they necessarily ever saw me drunk. I certainly don't remember. The damage I was doing was causing it probably indirectly to my kids, but certainly to my marriage. I'm acutely aware of that now. And so you could argue that the overall effect was actually pretty damaging to the children because their parents are separated and divorced. I need to be careful that I don't put all of the blame on me because relationships are complicated and it takes two, etc. There's two sides to every story. However, I do need to, I know where I went wrong. I need to hold myself accountable for the things that I did wrong. Simply because if I don't hold myself accountable, if I don't acknowledge that and own it, then I'm just going to make the same mistakes again. And I've got to be very, very honest about these things.
Yeah.
I don't have to go on a podcast and talk about it, but it's kind of cathartic. I've done it a lot in AA meetings where best just to be honest. It's a strange one really because with the more I put into AA, the more I realise it's not necessarily. I mean, it is about drinking, of course it is, but it's a kind of a self-help group really, and it's as much about kind of alcoholic thinking as it is about the actual practicalities of actually drinking, because most of the people I know in AA have been around a while now. They've some of them have been going for 30 years. So but they are never going to say, "Oh, I'm cured of this. I'm fixed," because they know that their alcoholic thinking is always kind of lurking in the background.
Yeah.
And it might not manifest itself in an actual drink or taking a drug. It might manifest itself elsewhere. And if you're not being completely open and honest about that with the people around you, then you are potentially in trouble.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, was as part of that, what does kind of sobriety look like now? What does, because I think some people have this kind of real thing about, everybody being zen and
Yeah.
going to your talks and all that kind of stuff. But actually, what does the real life look like?
Yeah, I think it's so that with most people who get sober, the first like 3 to 6 months is called the sort of pink fluffy cloud. Once you get past that hurdle and you start kind of getting your life back a little bit, it feels amazing because you feel better physically, mentally. You've got this horrible thing off your back. The biggest problem I've found, not so much with me, but with, I guess, with other people, is that they get past that bit and then it's like, okay, now what? Like if you get, like getting sober is not a panacea. It's not going to fix everything overnight. Like winning the lottery, your life's amazing now. That's not it. What it does is it gives you the tools to make the best of your life afterwards. But you need to do the work. And the work is whether you're working on yourself or whether you're working with a sponsor, going to meetings, talking to people regularly, and then you're kind of thinking about more acts of service. So getting a service position within an AA group, which might be making the teas, it might be being a greeter, it might be doing the literature. Everyone's encouraged to contribute, and I've been the chair of a meeting, and I was the treasurer of a meeting, I had a few different roles, and it just means that you're giving something back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, there isn't going to be one clear, this is what sobriety is going to look like for you. It's going to be different for everybody. I think the really important thing to remember is that it is not going to fix everything overnight. What it does, however, do is it means that you've got the ability, the tools to kind of tackle life head on.
Yeah.
Life continues. Life is going to go on. Like bad things are still going to happen. You can't prevent bad things from happening, but looking at it, can you tackle this better drunk?
Yes.
Or can you tackle this better sober? Now, a prime example of this, as you'll be aware, I'm sure, my mum passed away last year.
Yeah.
Laura and I, my sister and I, this is not having to go at either of my brothers. It's just, the way that life kind of unfolded is that, it was up to my sister and I to deal with most of it, organising the funeral and looking after my dad and et cetera, et cetera. As a family, everyone's been brilliant. It's just more about where we live,
the practicalities of it.
Yeah, precisely. That's the reason why that kind of happened that way. But I remember going to an AA meeting not long after my mum passed away, and I was thinking, like, if I was still drinking at this time, or if I returned to drinking at this time, then I would have made it all about me. It would have been poor me, woe is me. I would have used it as an excuse to go out and, kill myself. Well, not kill myself literally, but, destroy myself. I've got justification now, so I'm going to go out and really punish myself, punish everyone around. None of that occurred to me. None of that happened. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I really want to drink. I didn't even think about it. I was able to tackle it head on, like, I say normal. No one's normal, but as a functioning member of our family, Whereas if I'd been drinking and using, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And so, it's almost like I surprised myself in the sense that, oh, I can do this. I can tackle this. If you look at, again, this is not about me saying poor me, but, in the last 2 or 3 years, I've separated from my wife, divorced, had back surgery, spinal surgery, lost my career, and then my mum died. I mean, there's
That's pretty huge.
Heavy stuff, in a very, very short space of time.
Yeah.
If anyone had an excuse to go out and drink, it might have been me. I mean, I'm not saying that excuse would have been justified, but, I think a lot of people were looking at me like, oh my God, this is If he's going to do it, it's going to be now.
It's going to be now.
But
Yeah.
it didn't even occur to me. I didn't think about it. And it wasn't like I was battling it. I just didn't want it. And the reason why I didn't want it is because of the work that I've done in AA, the work that I've done with my sponsor, and the work that I've done with other people in AA. But then also working with people who are in sobriety or in recovery, because not everybody I know who's in recovery is in AA, but talking about these things with other people, it gives you like a natural, almost like a barrier, where I was able to look at the situation and think, well, number one, I don't want to let myself down. Number two, I don't want to let my family down or my friends or any of the other people in AA. But the biggest thing is the further I get away from that last time I had a drink, the more I realize, or the more I recognize how much damage it would have been doing to me had I still been doing it. Like, I think about that all the time in a sense of like, putting myself through that level of punishment again. There is no amount of money that would make me want to do that, because it wasn't fun in the end. The last 5 or 6 years, or maybe longer, none of it was fun, but it became a necessity rather than a choice. And that's
Was there a point, Chris, that happened where you thought, oh God, this is bad? Did something happen?
Yeah, there was a few different things. So the first thing was, what I should have known better. I should have known in my mid-20s when I ended up in hospital. I won't go too deeply into the details, but it was pretty bad, and I was kind of in a rehab setting after that. So that wasn't my first taste of that. My first taste of it was losing my driving license in my early 20s, drink driving. So that I was able to say I did like a drink driving rehabilitation thing. That was my first introduction to group setting. And then mid-20s. The problem is that I had no real interest in stopping drinking. And it was a long time ago now, but my recollection of it at the time, it wasn't like, well, we're a group that's going to help you get sober and stay sober. No, it was more about learning how to drink sensibly, learning how to control your drinking.
Okay.
Now, the one thing that I didn't know, and I didn't work this out until years and years later, is that there are, the idea of the stereotypical alcoholic is a guy on a park bench with a bottle of whiskey shouting at the traffic. I mean, obviously there is that, but that is not my experience at all. My experience of pretty much everybody I've met in AA wasn't that they were drinking every single day out of physical addiction. Again, there is that, and I do know people who have been through that. My overall experience is what happens to people when they have a drink, because I would go out and I would think to myself, right, I'm going to have 1 or 2 pints and I'll be back by 10 p.m. And in my head, I meant that. I really meant, okay. But as soon as I had that first drink, or see the first sip, the first bit of it, there was something happens in my brain, the chemical reaction in my brain, where it's like, okay, I want this and I want more of it. And I want more, and I want more, and I want more. And it's that old saying of, one's too many, 10's not enough.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that about myself. And it wasn't really until after I got sober that I did learn that about myself, because I thought to myself, well, I can't be an alcoholic because I'm not physically addicted to alcohol. Like I've seen Train Spotting, those guys are they're physically addicted to heroin.
Yeah.
I'm not, I know loads of people who smoke. They're physically addicted to smoking. They can't stop smoking. They're physically addicted to it. I can go for weeks without drinking. I can go for months without drinking. And I had gone for months without drinking. So I'm fine. I haven't got a problem. So then it becomes about, right, why can you not moderate your drinking? And so then also with the people around you, it's, well, we're going to a party, it's someone's whatever 40th birthday party. It's not like a big major thing. It's a get together, and at 3:00 in the morning, I'm still going, and I'm trying to encourage everybody else who's still around me to keep going. And if that party stopped, then I'll just carry on the party somewhere else by myself if I have to. And so afterwards, you'd always look at it and be like, the people around me would always be like, why can you not behave like everybody else? Why can you not behave like normal people? And I'd be saying the same thing to myself as well. Angry with myself. Why did I do that again and again and again? Why can I not control this? And it wasn't.
I've often heard people talk as well a lot about feeling quite shameful
Yeah.
about it.
Definitely.
Shame is really big in there as well. Why didn't I do that differently? Why did I do that?
Yeah.
Or embarrassed by something that they did at the point.
Yeah, always. I mean, and that, with ADHD doesn't help that either, with the art
No.
playing everything over in your head afterwards. I mean, so there wasn't one event that was like, oh, okay, that's the pivotal event. There was a pivotal event for me, which was the last time I ever drank, where I was up in the middle of the night. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. I had work the next day. I was at a job the next day. And that was the first time where I ever realized that, well, I don't have any control over this at all. I was 39. I'd had a couple of warning shots before that, and in my head thinking, this is a bit weird. Why do I keep doing these things? Why can I not stop? But that was the first time when I ever actually just got on my knees. I was like, oh, okay, I understand it now. Like, I am an alcoholic, or I cannot physically drink like normal people.
Yeah.
Normal people. I can't do it, and half the battle, I guess, is recognizing that.
Yeah.
Once
Huge.
you've realized that, it's like, oh, okay, fine, right. Okay, now I know, what I need to do.
Did you find, Chris, that when you got sober, did the ADHD stuff become more obvious then?
Yeah,
Was the kind
definitely.
it did?
100%. Yeah.
So it was kind of hiding the ADHD
Yeah,
stuff almost.
it was, yeah. A lot of that came to the surface.
Okay.
Do you know what, actually? Let me try to articulate this. I guess my behavior up until that point, all the bad things I was doing, you could probably attribute that to an addictive personality, right? So it's like, right, you've stopped drinking and doing drugs, so why are you still doing these bad things? Well, not the same bad things, but why are you still not behaving brilliantly? I can't blame that on the drink and drugs anymore. Not a blame. I can't attribute it to that anymore.
Yeah.
And again, it's very, very important to anyone watching this that, I am not saying that all of the things that I've done wrong are down to my ADHD. I don't get a free pass.
Yeah.
Oh, I did that stupid thing. That was my ADHD. Oh, don't worry about it then. You're fine.
Yeah.
But what it did, it absolutely highlighted the way that my brain works and why I react to things a certain way, why I behave a certain way, why I do the things that I do. The alcohol and all that maybe kept a lid on it.
Yes.
It was a distraction.
Yeah, it redirected people almost because it must be the alcohol.
Really the best way of putting it, yeah. And then you're sober and you're like, oh, okay, fine, I'm still doing similar things. I'm still behaving, idiot. What's this about? And then it's like, and again, since I found out that I had ADHD, it's so much of all of this has just clicked. Okay, right, now I get it. And getting a diagnosis, it wasn't like I woke up the next day and said, oh, you're fixed now, going on to try medication, doesn't stop me from having ADHD. It just hopefully enables me to function a little bit more.
How did you feel after the diagnosis, Chris? Because I know for me, I was quite shocked by my kind of range of emotions that came out after my diagnosis. Now, I haven't got any difficulties with addiction, but mine's probably been mental health in a more general way, anxiety, that kind of thing. And I think when I got diagnosed as dyslexic, I thought I would just be relieved. I thought I'd kind of go, oh, thank God. I know what it is now. I can do something about it. But I went through thank God, because initially I was worried about what would happen if they said I wasn't dyslexic.
There was that.
Then what does that mean? I'm just stupid. Then there was the whole, okay, thank God, that's what it is. Now I can kind of find a way around that. But I think then there came this real anger, like really cross. And I'm not an angry person. I don't like feeling angry particularly. I don't get angry very easily. But a real sense of anger that I feel like my life could have been different. And I almost feel like, a bit like you said, it sounds a bit cliche, but being born again, it is that sense of, I think since I got the diagnosis is being able to lean in to being dyslexic.
There you go.
I'm okay with that.
That's it. So leaning into it, that's really, really good way. Actually, do you know, A friend of mine, John Winston, he said that once I got my diagnosis and then he found out about the after party and the work, he said to me, oh, you're really leaning into this, aren't you? Like, it was like, but actually that kind of, it helped me
Yeah.
get a better understanding of it, come to
Yeah. And
terms
it's not an excuse
more.
leaning in. It's not a forgive me because I'm just this, that, or the other. It is a real sense of, I almost felt like I became more dyslexic because I dropped
There you go.
it's very stereotypical for women is we tend to have lots of masking and coping strategies. I mean, men do as well. And I think I got a sense and an opportunity to drop some of those.
Yeah,
I just became
absolutely.
more dyslexic.
Yeah. Do you know something that you made me realise actually as well? Because I have had mental health issues for years, and my mental health issues started in my mid-20s,
Yeah.
and it was so easy to say, right, your mental health issues come from your addictive nature and
Yes.
the way that you're reacting to that, so your behaviour, and also, I had a back operation in 2010. I have lived in chronic pain for the last 20 years. Okay. So you think to yourself, well, of course you're going to be depressed because of that. And of course you're going to be
Yeah.
because you're using. Of course you're going to be depressed because you haven't got any money. Of course. But then once you remove those things and you're still depressed, or then as I did in 2024, I had a mental breakdown. Like, well, what's that about then? I've removed all those other things and this is still happening. And it's like, oh, hang on a minute. There is something else here. It's something else lurking, quite sinister for me. And for me, actually unearthing it took away that it felt quite, as I said, sinister, like a little bit evil and a little bit,
Okay.
like something's lurking there and it's doing me harm. Actually unearthing it kind of removed that in a way. It's like, right, it doesn't necessarily have to be a hurtful, harmful thing. It is what it is, but the things that I'm really interested in are the links between addiction, neurodiversity, and depression. Now, the three are not necessarily mutually exclusive. The people who suffer from addiction problems are not always going to have mental health issues in the same way. They're not necessarily going to be neurodivergent. For me, that was a kind of a vicious trifecta. Is the way that I look at it. Each one is feeding into the other.
Yeah. And it may well be that people don't realise they have an addiction because, like you talked about, addiction isn't just alcohol, drugs. It can be it can be food, it can be sex, it can be almost anything. You can have an addiction to something that will cause you harm, taken to extremes.
Yeah.
And it might be, actually some people, the recording of whether people have addiction and are neurodivergent may not be correct because they might not actually even see it as a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at an addiction, try to explain it to other people. I mean, again, there's no hard and fast cookie cutter thing. I mean, amount of people I've had said to me like, "Oh, do you think I've got a drinking problem?" I'm like, well, it's not for me to say. That's for you. You can, it's none of my business. The way that I look at it is are you in control of it?
Yes.
And is it doing you more harm than good? And if the answer to either of those is kind of like, maybe you might have a look at it. Get a lot of people don't think they've got a drinking problem because they might go for months without drinking. But a lot of people I know, again, they've got that thing where as soon as they have a drink, it's like the wheels come off, and then they have a really messy night, and then there's all the consequences of the next couple of days where they feel terrible and they feel ashamed, blah, 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 and they miss their kids' sports day the next day because they were too hungover to go, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But then they'll go for 3 months, 4 months again without doing any of that. And then when it's, but then they can often repeat the same cycles. And so I would argue that is drinking problem. It might not be the conventional drinking problem.
It's causing you harm. And
I don't think people realise how damaging alcohol actually is. And I'm not here to get all evangelical about it. But it's a legal drug, and the amount of money that alcohol costs the NHS on a weekly basis. Like, again, it all sounds quite trite and maybe a little bit obvious, but I think anyone is probably going to know that if you walk into a hospital on a Friday and Saturday night, what is everybody there for? Not everybody, but why is this happening? So the resources that are taken up by the police and the ambulance services and the hospitals of dealing with drunk people is, it takes up a huge amount of their time and resources. That is why alcohol should be taxed so heavily. It's because people have got to pay for the after effects of it. It's the same thing about smoking. Smoking doesn't do anyone any good ever. There are no benefits to smoking. So that's why it's taxed so heavily, because it has such a creates a massive load on the energy.
Yeah. And I think I was just thinking about the kind of alcohol side of things and the addiction side of things, and linking that into, neurodiversity, like you're talking about, and mental health. And it must be as well that kind of that chicken and egg thing. We know if you're neurodivergent, you're neurodivergent. That's not going to come and go. You are. But actually, the other two, does that kind of, what comes first? Is it because I'm neurodivergent but not diagnosed? And there are lots of people like, we've discovered, Chris and I, that we're actually the same age and we were in the same year at school. Actually, there's a lot of people our kind of age that are kind of going, oh, and working out that they're a neurodivergent in their 40s and their 50s, and all those coping strategies, positive and not so positive, that they have adopted over time. Is that because they haven't recognised their neurodivergence, or it hasn't been recognised? It's not their fault; it hasn't been recognised. Therefore, the drinking comes in, the drugs come in, the addictions come in, the low mood then comes as a consequence of constantly masking and constantly not understanding why you're doing certain things. And actually, at the crux of it, is it understanding neurodivergence? I don't know. It's a question that I kind of put out there.
I would love to know, because I really didn't enjoy school. I hated school.
Yeah, me too.
I couldn't wait to get out. And then I made the mistake of going into like higher education, thinking that, it was just the school setup was a problem. The problem is I'm just in that kind of academic setup, for whatever reason. I'm not stupid. I know I'm not stupid, but, I just really struggle in that kind of environment. And I was always very creative, so that's what I wanted to do. I was good at art, so I did art at school. And then, I discovered that I was good at music. So then I pursued music, and that's where I was happiest. And it's also probably no surprise as well that, all of the successful things I've done career-wise have been self-employed. I do not thrive in a boxed-in environment.
Yeah. I was talking to someone this morning. I think they said to me that kind of self-employed, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, that kind of thing. 1 in 5 of them, they reckon, are neurodivergent. And I think 1 in 5 were dyslexic. That could be higher about the neurodivergence, actually. 1 in 5 were dyslexic.
Higher. Do you know what it is as well? Like, so I don't wake up in the morning and I think, sometimes at 9 o'clock, I absolutely do not want to do any work. For whatever reason, I just want to, have a coffee, watch the news, or do anything else other than work, But then quite often, though, I'll find myself working until 11:30, 12 o'clock at night.
Yes.
Because that seems to be where I'm most productive,
Yes.
And back when I was doing the electrical work, it's quite. I worked with a guy called Jack for years, and he would always. I would always be up really late doing all the invoicing and writing out all the certificates and things, And he would say, like, next day, "Oh, you were up late last night." I'd be like, "Yeah, but I don't know, something about it. It's putting my headphones on, hyper-focusing for 3 or 4 hours, getting all the paperwork up to date."
Yeah.
That's when I wanted to do it. And, that's why I guess being in a 9 to 5 in an office, conventional, it's just for me. I just want to do it. I'll do it when I want to do it. No one's going to tell me otherwise.
It's telling me what to do.
No one's telling me what to do.
Kind of thinking about what works for you, Chris. And I heard you talk about your music, and I suppose what I loved, I obviously got the podcast, but what I loved about coming onto the radio show with you is that it incorporated music, and music's a big part of my life too. And I just think what's so nice about the after party is that you're having those really important conversations, but I love that it brings music in. And I think listening to you talk, that's obviously a really important part for you as well.
Mm.
And I suppose I was just thinking about what other things that kind of, if you, are you doing that kind of bring you joy, I suppose? And joy sounds a bit geeky, but
I
I
think,
like the word joy.
I think it's good. I think that, absolutely, music, and it's playing for me, listening to, but then also I've always had an insatiable appetite for information, so
Okay.
if it's like, if you, it doesn't even have to be a band or artist that I even particularly like, but if that person's interesting, and that's interesting to me, then I will,
Yes.
I've bought books on artists before where, I've tried to listen to the music. I'm like, no, I just can't get it. But they're an interesting person. They've got an interesting story. I'm interested in that,
Okay.
And so for me, a lot of it is, where was it recorded? Who recorded it? What year was it recorded? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
quite weird niche details. And it's actually something that my son says to me regularly, thankfully, like, he's really into music and seems to be kind of going on down that road. I'm immensely happy about that, because I can just live vicariously through him now and then. So
Yeah.
my work's done. But he will often sort of be amazed at where this stuff is coming from, the knowledge.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know where it's coming from. It's in there somewhere. I'm hopeless remembering people's names and birthdays. Awful, terrible. But I can tell you where David Bowie was in March 1976. Let's look at things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that's always been a massive, massive thing for me.
Do you have kind of music at some point in your day every day? So you
Yeah,
might
pretty
be
much.
listening or playing. Yeah.
Pretty much all day. So
Yeah.
I've always
So
got
it's
the
in
radio.
your life all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I've always got the radio on.
Yeah.
If I've got the radio on, then I'm listening to an album, or I'm
Yeah.
listening to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a podcast about music. And I'll quite often spend some part of the evening reading about something or watching a documentary or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
bit. It's a massive, massive part of my life. The thing that's become really big in my life over the last couple of years, which was kind of forced upon me because of my back, was
Yeah.
Pilates and yoga. Now,
Do you prefer one over the other?
I prefer Pilates. Yeah,
Do you? Okay.
yeah, I do. Yeah. When I first started doing it, first of all, I felt like such an idiot. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I think the thing is as well is we live in a fast society, right, where we
Yes.
want instant results and instant gratification and instant things. And so I remember I did Pilates years ago, when I was probably like 2012, something like that. And I did actually started to notice the benefits after a while. And then because I've been through every single kind of, chiropractor, osteopath, you name it, I've been there. But I would say the thing that's helped me the most was Pilates. So I started
Okay.
doing it a couple of years ago, taking it more seriously and doing it pretty much every night. After my operation, I couldn't do it, really missed it. And then I went back to it again. And then this was when it really clicked for me, because there were, after my operation, I remember like I couldn't, there was physical things that I just couldn't do, because I couldn't get anywhere near touching my toes. And so I'm thinking,
Mhm.
right, I was in so much pain that you actually think to yourself, I'm never going to be able to touch my toes again. There is no physical way that I'm ever going to be able to do this again, because you're like, it's
Yeah.
impossible. But then
Yeah.
I would think about Pilates and yoga, it takes time, but over time you start to see the benefits kind of manifesting itself. After 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you're like, oh my God, this actually works. And
Yeah.
the other thing as well, I know that it works because if I don't do it for a few days for whatever reason, my body really starts to suffer and I start to notice
Okay.
differences. And so, I can be in pain. I'll go and do Pilates and yoga, Pilates more, and then that will actually make you feel better almost
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So the other thing as well that's become, again, I didn't realize that this was happening, but this is kind of how it happened, was I would stick an album on while I was doing this, like it's like a 45 minutes to an hour session I would do every day, right? Which is generally one album, maybe 1.5 albums. Okay.
Yeah.
Stick it
Yeah.
on vinyl usually. And so then it becomes this almost like ritual. And what I hadn't realized as well, that it was becoming a mindfulness exercise. It was becoming meditative in a sense
Yeah.
that I was putting my phone in another room.
Yeah.
All I was doing for that 45 minutes to an hour is just concentrating on Pilates, yoga, the music. That everything else just drifts away. I hadn't realized how valuable that hour had become to me,
Yeah.
not just for a health, like physical health reasons, but also for
Yeah.
mental reasons as well.
Yeah. I was just going to say, because I think sometimes with an ADHD brain, you know, you and Laura and I had a conversation about where there might be an ADHD diagnosis for me in there. But until that comes, when I'm talking to other people with ADHD brains, they often will talk about actually the quiet and staying still is really difficult. But what you're doing with that and is staying present in the moment, but including movement and music to
Yeah,
enable you to keep in the moment.
that's
And
exactly. Yeah, that's
that's
exactly.
really important, that bit,
Yeah,
isn't it? I think sometimes as ADHD brains, we tend to be onto the what's next, because we're always chasing the next dopamine hit. Whereas actually incorporating all of those gives you the here in the moment, which we're not very good at doing by using, I mean, I can get my OT hat on and all about movement, but you know how movement helps with that. And I think that's really interesting.
yeah.
I was just thinking, Chris, is that what's next for you? So you've got the radio show. What are your plans? I know you and Laura are now, you know,
Yeah.
in plans for doing something. What's next?
Well, I think I'm really keen to kick that uphill and see where it can go. I think the thing, it's very early days. We've had some really positive feedback from a lot of people so far. I know that when you see that something has been shared by a lot of people, you know, and you see that kind of organic growth, if you like, that's incredibly rewarding, you know. And then when you get people then coming back to you and saying that I thought it was brilliant, you know, I actually have had people come back to me who I absolutely did not expect to kind of enjoy it or get something out of it, you know, and then on a slightly higher level, I've sent it to some people I know who were working, you know, some big companies and stuff, you know, this is kind of what they do in terms of, you know, the whole social media aspect of it. And they've come back and said, well, you might be onto something here. This is really, really good. So what I'd love to do, ideally, well, I'm retraining to be an ADHD coach. So
Are you? I didn't know that.
so I can't wait to have all that up and running, but to have that running alongside the after party, that's kind of what I want to do. You know, I want it to be, I want to get it to be a weekly show,
Mm.
maybe bi-weekly. And then it's about, then you start getting more attention, you know, in terms of, you know, sponsorship and guests and stuff. And it's absolutely not about being a celebrity slut. I don't, you know, I've got no interest in that celebrity culture whatsoever. But, you know, you would know that if you can get somebody with quite a high profile to come on it and
Just
you know,
shares it wider.
precisely, all it does is it just gets it out there, you know. So
Yeah.
if Laura and I can turn this into a bona fide career, then that would
Yeah.
tick a lot of boxes for me. You know,
Yeah.
it would mean that I've turned a really bad situation that I was in into actually like a really, really good situation, you know. So, you know, that's the thing about being an electrician that I always really enjoyed, was the helping people aspect. You know,
Yeah. Okay.
doing the work is pretty boring most of the time, pretty mundane.
Yeah. Yeah.
The most rewarding part is when you get somebody coming home and they go, "Oh wow, you know, thank you so much for fixing that," or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
using and blah 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 blah. That's the bit, you know, that I used to really, really enjoy. And so,
Yeah.
you know, in order, you know, if I get the opportunity now to just to help people, I mean, that's got to be, it's got to be worth it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, what we'll do is we'll leave all the links, because I would very much recommend going and finding. Although it's on Surrey Hills Radio, the show,
Yeah.
and it's called The After Party, that actually you can listen to it from anywhere. So there's a link, isn't there, that you can join up and have a listen. So you don't have to be in Surrey to listen to it.
No, you'd absolutely don't. Yeah, it's on all the other streaming platforms now as well. I was going to
Yeah, it comes
mention,
out as like a podcast type as well, doesn't it?
yes, yeah, and so you've got multiple different ways that you can get yourself involved in it.
We'll make sure we put all of those in
Yeah,
the show notes for people so they can
yeah.
find that.
And what we want people to do is to follow us on social media as well.
We will do that as well. So
Yeah,
what are you on, Chris? Are you on
all of them:
Facebook?
Facebook, Instagram, I think TikTok.
Okay, I would definitely recommend it. Thanks ever so much for coming on, Chris. I really appreciate you coming on, and I really appreciate how open you've been about it, because it isn't often spoken about, I don't think, enough. I think often people feel quite shameful of it. and won't talk about it. And I also think, we've talked about that link between neurodivergence and addiction is a strong one. And there'll be lots of parents out there under stress as well. And we probably didn't touch much on that. But actually, when our stress levels go up and when you think about the things that you were going through at the time, why alcohol then becomes that crutch or that support during that time. And I'm sure, parents that a bit like I have been is through EHCPs and through tribunals and all that kind of stuff, our stress levels and how we cope in those times. Often the crutch for neurodivergent and neurotypical people is drinking.
Yeah.
And to find a way through. I hope that this has kind of normalised that conversation, has shown the kind of the risks of drinking, but also that what's come out of that for you out the other side and how you found your way through and what your plans are next. And I'm really excited to see where the radio show goes. I thought, as I say, I thoroughly enjoyed myself on the show. It was great fun.
Well, we are definitely going to have you back. And
I love it.
Your thing might even be I don't want to ruin the surprise.
Okay. Keep the surprise. It was great fun. And I think what it does and what it's there for is really, really important. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. So we will make sure all those contact details are in the show notes. And it just leaves me to say thank you ever so much. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks very much, Liz, for inviting me on.
You're welcome.
Just before you go, I just want to give you a quick reminder that if you want to follow me on Instagram, the podcast has its own Instagram page, the Untypical Parent Podcast. And if you fancy maybe being a podcast host, I also have an Instagram page for the Untypical Podcaster, supporting those of us who feel like we maybe don't quite fit the podcasting mold, but really fancy trying our hand at podcasting. Make sure to go and follow me on those, and I'll see you at the next episode.